The fugitive billionaire jeweler Nirav Modi has been denied bail yet again in a British court following his arrest last week by the authorities on charges over his involvement in the billion-dollar Punjab National Bank fraud. A joint team of officers of Central Bureau of Investigation and also the Indian Enforcement Directorate were present in the Westminster Magistrates Court. The team also presented fresh evidence to oppose the bail of Nirav Modi. This is the second time that the court has denied bail to him. Nirav Modi will remain behind bars for at least another 6 weeks and will appeal against the order in a higher court. The 48-year-old diamond magnate who denies the charges also is facing possibility of extradition to India. A panel set up by the Indian Election Commission has not found any violations of the Model Code of Conduct in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's announcement of the successful test of an anti-satellite missile on Wednesday. The panel, which submitted its report on Friday, has said that it was told by the officials from the public broadcaster Doordarshan that the telecast of the Modi speech was not live and was in fact sourced from a news agency. Officials of All India Radio have also told the panel that the radio channel had used Doordarshan's audio output and no production activity was involved from its side. The panel further said that these submissions showed that the Model Code of Conduct had not been violated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi when he made that address to the nation. Remember, on Wednesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had announced that India had shot down a live satellite in space and had become only the 4th country in the world to do so. Congress President Rahul Gandhi has said that if voted to power, his party will scrap the Niti Aayog, the policy think tank of the Government of India. He has said, and I quote, "If voted to power, we'll scrap the Niti Aayog. It has served absolutely no purpose whatsoever other than making marketing presentations for the Prime Minister and fudging data. We will replace it with a lean planning commission whose members will be renowned economists and experts with less than 100 staff." The Planning Commission, set up in 1950 under the then Congress government, was replaced by the Niti Aayog by the Modi dispensation. The Congress is, of course, seeking to revert to the original structure of the government's think tank. The angry Brexit supporters sprayed the swastikas on a European Union flag outside of the British Parliament on Friday after the lawmakers rejected Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal for a 3rd time. The thousands of pro-Brexit protesters marched in the heart of the British capital, waving the Union Jack flags and also placards reading "52 is larger than 42", a reference to the 2016 referendum result that kicked off Britain's divorce from the European Union. Within minutes of the vote, the European Council President and also Summit Chair Donald Tusk said that the European Union leaders will meet on the 10th of April to discuss Britain's departure from the bloc. A succession of the European leaders said that there was a very real possibility that Britain would now leave without a deal, a scenario that businesses fear would actually cause chaos for the world's 5th biggest economy. A man was arrested by police on Friday evening after being stopped as he attempted to scale the security gates of Downing Street, the residence of the British Prime Minister. The arrest came on a day when thousands of people who were opposed to Britain's delaying its departure from the European Union, in fact, staged a protest after the lawmakers in the Parliament had strongly rejected Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal for a 3rd time. Now, there was a small standoff between the police and the supporters, as almost about 100 people protested outside of Theresa May's office, shouting, "We want Brexit."
Smile for the camera, mate! Fucking smile for the camera!
What were you doing?
The Palestinians clashed with the Israeli security forces along the Gaza-Israel border during demonstrations for the March of the Return. For the Palestinians, the 30th of March traditionally marks the land grab day when they commemorate Israel's killing of 6 Palestinians in 1976 who were protesting the Israeli government's announcement that it was virtually expropriating thousands of acres of land for state use, effectively grabbing Palestinian land. A Chinese plane loaded with medicines and supplies landed in Caracas on Friday. The shipment for Venezuela contained about 65 tons of medicines and supplies. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies are preparing to deliver aid to Venezuela and can start distributing aid to an estimated 650,000 people in around 15 days. Meanwhile, the opposition leader Juan Guaido was quick to claim credit for the planned aid distribution, saying on Twitter that the announcements by the Red Cross and the church leaders amounted to a victory for his struggle. Pope Francis has enacted a sweeping new legislation to protect children from sexual abuse within the Vatican. The Pope has also issued a new law that for the first time requires Vatican personnel and diplomats of the Vatican City to immediately report allegations of sexual abuse to the authorities. Other than minors, the legislation also applies to vulnerable adults with mental and physical challenges or those who cannot defend themselves against a crime. This, of course, is the first time that the Vatican has made it a requirement for officials in the Roman Catholic Church to report sex abuse claims. Algerian police have used tear gas and water cannons to try to disperse hundreds of thousands of demonstrators demanding the resignation of President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. And this comes days after the army called for his removal to end weeks of political crisis. Waves of protests that began on the 22nd of February continue to put pressure on the military to stabilize the North African nation. Algeria is a major oil and gas producer which cooperates with the West in fighting terrorism. The owner of the building that caught fire on Thursday in Dhaka will be facing criminal charges. Local officials say that the high-rise building had 4 upper floors constructed illegally. Meanwhile, a fire chief investigating the blaze has said that the building did not have adequate safety precautions or follow proper building codes. 19 people were killed in the incident and many others were injured after they jumped off the building to escape from the fire. Tunisia will coordinate with fellow Arab countries to contain any fallout from the US decision to recognize the Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. We will work with fellow Arab nations and the international community to contain the expected repercussions of this decision in the various regional and international forums, said Tunisia's foreign minister to the Arab delegates at a meeting in Tunis. The Peruvian authorities had declared a state of emergency and banned public gatherings in the Andean town, where a long-running local community protest has shut off access to the Chinese miner MMG's massive copper mine. The measure suspends the right to hold public gatherings in the district of Chalhuahuacho for about 15 days and also allows authorities to carry out searches in people's homes. The unrest underlines the difficulties for the investors who are involved in resources projects in remote areas of Latin America, where locals and environmentalists often complain that their needs are being ignored. The locals have said that the MMG controlled by China Min Metals has not provided fair compensation for using the road. Hundreds took to the streets of Port-au-Prince to protest against the Haitian President Jovenel Moïse after the country's largest opposition groups united in a campaign to push the US-backed Moïse from the office. Armed police and riot gear tried to disperse the crowds of protesters who marched and also chanted in the streets of the capital. Protesters also lit car tires, looted shops and also damaged vehicles as well. Remember, previous protests have led to dozens of deaths in the clashes between the protesters and police and have also left businesses shut for several days. Almost about 25,000 students skipped school for the latest Fridays for Future protest in Stockholm and to see the Swedish activist who started it. 16-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg, who has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, has said that the protests are only the beginning of the beginning. The worldwide student strike to protest against government inaction on climate change started in August 2018, when Thunberg began protesting outside of her parliament on school days. The students in Paris, Madrid, Rome, Brussels and other cities have since joined the movement. The co-founders of the ride-sharing service, Lyft, took the company public and celebrated by ringing the opening bell of the Nasdaq. The IPO represents a watershed moment for the ride-hailing industry, hatched from the rise of the smartphones. Lyft had little trouble getting investors to hop on board its increasingly popular ride-hailing service, as its initial public offering has fetched $72 per share price that has exceeded even its own expectations. Thousands of participants joined the Mud Run event that took place in Tel Aviv. According to the event founders, approximately about 10,000 people participated in the annual event, which took place for the second year in a row. The event has consisted of 20 obstacles in mud, including the swinging between the ropes, climbing mud hills and crawling under tires. The participants had to choose between a 10K, a 5K and a possible 2K run. Cherry blossoms along the Washington Tidal Basin are in peak bloom as visitors enjoy the warmer weather and also the beautiful array of spring colors. The blooming of the Yoshino cherry trees that surround the Tidal Basin began last week. This year's peak bloom was predicted for the first week of April but has come a little early. The 12 different cultivators of the Yoshino cherry trees that line the Tidal Basin were gifted to Washington in 1912 from Japan. The iconic Louvre pyramid appeared to emerge from the abyss on Friday in an optical illusion created to mark its 30th anniversary. After 3 days of work with a team of almost 100 volunteers, the project was unveiled on large screens projected around the courtyard where visitors could see the full effect of the optical illusion, only visible from the museum's roof. The project was masterminded by French artist JR, who has previously collaborated with the museum to camouflage the 70-foot high pyramid in 2016. The courtyard will finally be open to the public starting today, and people will be able to observe the art at ground level before it is removed on the 1st of April.